Today we continue talking about the AFC East, talking about a team that was hot and cold, yes and no, up and down, in and out. To quote Katy Perry, I'm talking about the Miami Dolphins, the team that still has not been able to complete an entire season and be good from start to finish the entire way through. For the Miami Dolphins, we're going to talk about where I had them in August, what happened with their season, and then we're going to talk about how can they get better in the future. But before we begin all that officially, all right, and welcome in everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and you are listening to the Shumake Take. Welcome into Predictions versus Reality. The offseason series is getting ready to wrap up here as we record the AFC East. Then we go to the AFC West and then the AFC South to conclude everything. We are on a downhill run. These next couple of days are going to be filled with amazing content talking about the rest of these AFC teams. Before we begin, if you guys like this content or you enjoy the Shumake Take and enjoy me talking about football, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe button. It helps the channel out tremendously. I would greatly appreciate it if you would do that. It helps me helps me grow my platform and continuing to spread my football passion to more and more people on the internet. I also want to say I noticed that my predictions versus reality video for the Eagles went over 200 views. So any of you that watched it, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's by far the most viewed video I've ever had on my channel. That's awesome. I really, really do appreciate that for you. I appreciate you guys. Oh my God, I can't talk. I went to the State Fair today and I got a really bad sunburn on my neck. I want to put a picture on the screen right now so you can see how gnarly this crap is. But anyways, now that that's gone and we're ready to talk about the Miami Dolphins, let's talk about it. Where did I have the Miami Dolphins in August? I had this team going at 8-9. 9-8. They actually finished 8-9. I flipped that. So I projected them to go 9-8. The big thing with when I talked about Miami back in August was that I was unsure if this team was going to be able to play a complete season. If we remember and go back into the memory bank a little bit, 2022 and 2023, both of those years, Mike McDaniel, new young offensive head coach, the Miami Dolphins in the first half of the year would look like a Super Bowl contender, legitimately. Like, you remember the game where they dropped 70 on Denver? Like, those types of games, obviously that's not like that was just a standalone game, like how good that was. But they were putting up dominant performances week in and week out to start the year throughout September and October. And they legitimately looked like Super Bowl contenders at times. But then November and December would roll around. And then especially in December, when the weather got cold, this team went to crap. Went to straight garbage. The team in December compared to the team in December or in September didn't even look like the same team. The players were still the same. The coach was still the same. But if you looked at a game in week 16 to a game in week 6, it was completely different. It was completely different. And I thought, okay, this year it's going to repeat itself. It's going to do the exact same thing, and in a way it did, but it kind of inverted itself. We'll talk about that more in a second. But that ended up happening, and I was like, I can't buy it. I cannot buy the Dolphins going any more than 9 wins because they cannot play a complete full season. They simply can't. They have not been able to do it in the Mike McDaniel era at all, and so I had no reason to believe that it was going to continue until they proved that they could actually do it. So the next thing is I was also keen in on defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver and what he could do with the defense that on paper was actually very, very talented. Good players on the defensive line, good linebackers, good players in the secondary. On paper, this was one of the better looking defenses in the NFL at the time. And I thought, okay, new DC, got a lot of talent. It's going to help him out. And he's going to help them out, I hope. And hopefully things should turn out well. And so outside of that, continuing, the last thing I was also talking about was health, because the team had dealt with pretty damaging injuries to Tua, to Jalen Ramsey, to Tyreek Hill in 2023, and all of them got hurt, and their lack of presence was truly felt. And I will admit that I said this team was one that I could be the most wrong about, because there was an avenue for this to really go in Miami's favor if it all worked out, because they had the talent, they had the coaching. If there was it was that one in Seattle where if I was going to be wrong about picking any of these teams and they're projecting their record, it was Miami and Seattle, the ones I thought I could be the most wrong about. And, well, when we talk about Miami, I was almost exactly right. They ended up finishing 8-9, which is what happened with their season. Let me scroll up here. My script is not in order. I apologize. So their offense finished 18th. Their defense finished 4th overall. And their three best wins of the year, in my opinion, were against Las Vegas Raiders, 34-19. They beat New England 34-15, and then they beat Cleveland in Cleveland 20-3. These are the games where both offense and defense played well together and looked at their best. And you saw with these three games, even though they're not all these teams are bad football teams, you could see what this Miami Dolphins team looked like. Because there's some teams that, okay, they might let like a couple scores on a bad football team where it might be a one-score game. But no, Miami, every time they went up against a bad football team, they beat the ever-living daylights out of them. Every single time, practically. So they showed that they had the potential to be a really good football team, to be a playoff team, and might I argue, a Super Bowl contender. But obviously they didn't. They finished 8-9. So what happened with their season? Week 1 was a mixed bag. They barely beat Jacksonville, and then they lost a couple games here. And next thing you know, the game, I can't remember what game it was on prime time. Tua gets hurt, another concussion, goes out, and then when Tua leaves, this team went. I don't know how loud that was. I'm really sorry. I just had to do that because this team, when Tua left, instantly went to you know what. It went to crap. It went to doo-doo. Legitimate doo-doo. This offense could not do anything. They literally could not pass the ball. They couldn't run the ball. And then the defensive side completely fell apart because the offensive side of the football was so goddamn bad. Horrifically bad. I remember the game in Seattle. I remember the game in Tennessee. Those games were so horrifically bad. Like, I'm not even joking. They were painful to watch. Painful to watch. And I guess what? I sat there and watched both of those games. And you know what I got? I almost got my eyes bleeding out because of how boring it was to watch. Anyways, back to the case in point, rant over. Their offense finishing 18th reflected this because without Tua, the offense was garbage. And when Tua was back in, the offense did improve. Was it the explosive unit that it was in previous years? No. But at the same time, with Tua back in, the offense got way more efficient, way more productive compared to what it was before, and the team actually looked competitive, right? So it was no longer just lose. Now Miami was winning games, and that reflected in their win total because they started off really bad, but when Tua came back throughout November and December, where normally they don't play well, and I talked about how they're not going to make the playoffs because their record's already too bad. They're not going to be able to overcome November and December. To be fair, they kind of did. They really went on a good run there at the end of the year. They were in the playoff hunt until the final week of the year. So, I mean, they were able to stay competitive and keep on fighting despite the fact that Tua went down and their entire season at that point went to absolute garbage. But like a phoenix, he arose from the ashes and helped his team be competitive once more. So, what went wrong, or kind of more specifically what happened with Miami? It's hard to say what went wrong per se because they finished with one win less than what I had them projected, but at the same time there is plenty of things that went wrong in Miami's season. So the first one was their defense. I straight up was wrong about this unit, and backwards, I worded that wrong. The first thing that happened with their year was their defense. First thing was, I want to admit, now that I'm actually talking about it in the right context, I was wrong about this unit. I said that they were bad all year, but simply, that was not the case. The numbers show that they were actually a very good unit and much better than what I gave them credit for. Their secondary was in the top 10. Rush defense was average, but it wasn't debilitating, and every other metric they were in were just in or just outside the top 10. However, there was a reason that I was saying stuff about this defense, why it was so bad. Now getting into the negative here, there was two big issues with the group that I had that went hand in hand with each other. Without Bradley Chubb, who was lost for the whole year, Jalen Phillips, the young edge rusher out of Miami, I think he came out of, went down early in the year. Rookie Chop Robinson and veteran Emmanuel Ogbah had to step in, and when you have an aging veteran way past his prime and a rookie edge rusher, which rookie edge rushers don't tend to perform very well as rookies outside of the occasional splash, like a Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett, for example. It doesn't come around very often where a first-round edge rusher pops off immediately, and usually they go at the top of the draft, like Parsons and Myles Garrett did. But anyways, back to the point, losing Chubb and losing Jalen Phillips effectively killed their pass rush. And when you can't get to the quarterback, you can't force what? Turnovers. Yes, you are correct. You can't force turnover, which both spots, rushing the passer and getting turnovers, they both finished 27th, near the bottom of the NFL. And the problems on offense stacked onto that, it led to this defense where you look at the tape, a lot of times their players were just trying to do too much and trying to overcompensate, which then allowed big plays to go over their head. And then it hurt this offense even more and put them in situations where they simply couldn't come back from. So, while the defense was better than I gave them credit for, there was two really huge glaring issues with this defense that went hand in hand with each other and single-handedly weighed the whole team down. Because even if you look at some of the bad teams, a lot of the bad teams this year, those two things went hand in hand as well. You look at teams that couldn't get after the quarterback, and you look at their turnover numbers, they're also near the bottom with their sack numbers. There's a reason why that those two numbers go hand in hand, whether they're good or bad, because if you can get after the quarterback and get pressure, what happens is you force mistakes. You force the quarterback to throw the ball early or throw it off platform with improper mechanics, and then that's how you capitalize on that and pick a ball off or bat a pass down incomplete, or if the catch is made because it's a bad throw and the receiver tries to catch it, bam, fumble. So those two things go hand in hand, and they single-handedly, in a way, held the whole team back. The next thing that went kind of wrong with this team was the offense. I mentioned the Tua injury and how it killed this team really killed the team entirely. They went on a huge, absolute, losing streak. I'm looking at my script here, and I'm looking at like a thing here. Okay, I'm caught back up now. Anyways, so Tua's injury showed two things. First one, Tua Tagovailoa is the guy, and he's a good quarterback. And when you look at what this team looked like with him and without him, that pretty much speaks for itself. But the next thing is Tua. They want to say Tua is the system. He's a system quarterback. No, Tua is the system. Obviously, with how well he performs in the offense when he's healthy and how bad the offense performs when he's not there, goes to show that this offense lived and died by Tua Tagovailoa. So the thing is, people love to say that he's a system quarterback. Well, the thing is, it's like a sprinkler per se. It's like you have two separate sprinklers that water your lawn. You have one sprinkler that's bigger and can cover 100% of your lawn. But the problem is, it's only going to do half of it. It's only going to do half the lawn because there's issues with it. Like there's a leak here, there's a hole there in the hose, right? Or there's some grime in one of the sprinkler heads that's supposed to shoot out and it won't shoot water out because it's clogged, right? And so think about that like a Patrick Mahomes, where he has, coming out of college, he had a lot of issues that he needed to fix, but if you fix them, you would get the best out of him and you'd be able to cover 100% of your lawn and water it, if that makes sense. With Tua, he's like a little smaller sprinkler, but he's going to cover, say, 75% of your lawn. But if you, instead of putting it on the side of your lawn, you move it to more of the middle of the lawn, you're going to find that it actually covers about 80% of the lawn. And then you realize, okay, with a little bit of your own work, you can water the rest of the 20% of the lawn. That's just outside of the range of the sprinkler. So that's kind of like what a quarterback is like at a talent ceiling. You know, you have this hose that's got issues with it, but if you fix it, it could be really good. But also, Tua Tagovailoa, the smaller sprinkler is not a bad sprinkler. If you get, because not only is it consistent, it's reliable, but also if you put it in the right position to maximize what it can do, and then you use your own work or supplement the rest of the work with other means of watering the lawn, I mean using yourself to water the lawn, now you got a sprinkler that actually does a pretty darn good job for what it can actually do. That's what Tua Tagovailoa is. He's that smaller sprinkler that can't do as much, that can't water as much lawn, but if you move it in the right spot, it can actually cover a pretty decent amount. And if you supplement the rest of the lawn watering to other means, guess what? It gets the job done for what it needs to do. So that's what Tua Tagovailoa is. He is the system in Miami, and every quarterback now is the system. There's no such thing as a system quarterback anymore, technically speaking. If you talk to coaches and players in the NFL and guys that are not even football guys, you talk about NFL guys. You even ask that to college guys, high school guys. A lot of people that know ball kind of agree with that sentiment. That being said, the offensive line was, along with the rest of the offense, with Tua being down and whatnot, back to the point, the offensive line was straight up terrible, especially on the interior, and both tackles are aging and on expiring contracts after 2025. So that also was a big issue. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and you mix that with Tua's injury, and then our next thing that we're going to talk about, it simply just was a recipe for disaster. The next thing, Tyreek Hill took a huge step back, but I feel like that was more of issues with the quarterback and the offensive line more than him per se, but he did do some things during the year that was pretty controversial, and people dogged on him for it, and then you look at what his final stats are, and people are using that as a narrative to go after him. I don't know how fair that is, but at the same time, he finished with less than 1,000 yards and, simply put, did not live up to expectations. So along with that, this team overall, with everything being said, was an uncomplimentary bunch. Even when Tua came back, it wasn't magically fixed. This offense lost a lot of big play potential and played a lot more dink and dunk to help get the rust off of Tua. And then you add on a defense that could not create the opportunities, the sacks or the turnovers, to help them out. And then you have a year where the whole team really didn't play together. And when you look at up and down, hot and cold, yes or no, and you're out. Like, quoting Katy Perry, once again, I listened to the song today, so it's stuck in my head. I'm sorry. It fits. But anyways, you have a year where the whole team didn't play together, and you look at the record, 8-9, almost right down the middle. Wow. It's like everything comes full circle. Wow, it's awesome, right? And then, ultimately, I talked about it, or briefly mentioned it. The funny thing is the hot and cold thing that we've been talking about. This year, it inverted itself. They started the year 2-6, and they finished 6-3. But to conclude this, it simply wasn't good enough. And then you look at what now? How can Miami get better with this? So the first thing they did was they did not fire Anthony Weaver. I thought they did, but they didn't. Anyways, going back to what they need to do. This team just needs to stay healthy. If they can stay healthy, they're probably a playoff team, but they're going to need to make serious changes if they want to stay good enough to keep that narrative. So the big three for me is, number one is offensive linemen, whether you get a tackle or you get an interior offensive lineman. Maybe you're in position to pick Tyler Booker, or Ahmad Membo. I also could see them going Kelvin Banks if he drops, because they have two veteran tackles. They did draft Patrick Paul out of Houston last year. He was a rookie. I think he's going to be their left tackle of the foreseeable future. But maybe you draft Kelvin Banks, who's a right tackle. No, was he left tackle? No, Kelvin Banks was a left tackle, excuse me. But you take him there, then you move him to right. Was Kelvin Banks a left tackle or a right tackle? God, I can't remember. Someone let me know in the comments. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I just forgot that. Anyways, you take Kelvin Banks, maybe you play him at right tackle, and there, you have two young, very talented, huge, monster-sized tackles to work with, and then you can figure out the interior. But I feel like interior might be the better move here to address with their first-round pick at least. And then maybe you go sign like a veteran like, I don't know, Kevin Zeitler from, what's his name, from Detroit, or like Will Freeze from Indianapolis, right? And supplement there. Maybe you draft a center late and develop him. That's kind of easy to do. I shouldn't say it's easy to do, but center is one of those positions you draft in the later rounds. You can kind of get away with it unless there's like a top tier talent at the top. But anyways, that being said, the next thing they need is a wide receiver. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are good, but with Tyreek Hill potentially leaving, maybe not leaving, and then you look at Jalen Waddle, both of these guys both dealt with injuries last year, and then they also had OBJ, who literally did nothing. You need a slot receiver or just any other receiver that can just help stay healthy and kind of boost the production of this passing game and this offense if somebody goes down. Even though Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are both paid, I don't know how much longer, like Tyreek Hill, for example, is going to stay in Miami. So if you get a receiver maybe on day 2, early day 3, that has a lot of upside. You can get a guy that can develop, and so you don't have to worry and scramble to find a replacement by the time one of these guys leaves or if someone goes down with an injury, which would be an unfortunate situation. The third need, in my opinion, is running back, because this is interesting because Devon Achane had a lot of really good games in 2024, but also he had some absolute stinkers of performances. Like, you talk about hot and cold, no individual player represented that more than Devon Achane for the Miami Dolphins in 2024. He was great on some weeks and absolutely abysmal on other weeks when you look at the stat sheet and you look at the tape. But that being said, they released Raheem Mostert. I know they have Jalen Wright or Jabari Small. Yeah, it's Jalen Wright in the backfield, the rookie running back out of Tennessee. But I don't know how much he can contribute. I think you need to add another player there to really flesh out this committee. Maybe you add like an Ollie Gordon, right? Someone on day 3, like a power back that helps complement the speed and pass catching abilities of Jalen Wright and Devon Achane, who also have more speed than they do power. Get a guy with power and help kind of flesh out that running back group so they can all rotate in and remain fresh so no one has to do too much work. That being said, there is a somewhat of a fourth need that this team needs to address, and that is backup quarterback. The thing is, Tua Tagovailoa is the system, but they really need to find a quarterback. I don't know how, but you need to find a quarterback that can execute the system. Because no matter who they put in there, it didn't work. Whether it was Tim Boyle, Tyler Huntley, it simply did not work at all. So for Miami, you guys need to get a backup quarterback that can execute the system, and when Tua goes down, can just right the ship and not have everything go to absolute crap like it did at the beginning of the year for Miami, which in my opinion effectively killed their season before it even got finished. To where even going 6-2 or 6-3 at the end of the year was not good enough to make the playoffs. Even though they were in the hunt, they did not make the playoffs. Those losses early in the year when Tua went down essentially destroyed their season before it even finished, like I just said. So getting a backup quarterback that can execute the system is probably the biggest need out of all these, realistically speaking, because if Tua goes down, then who do you have? Then what's this offense going to look like again? It's going to do the exact same thing it did this year? You can't have that. So you need a backup quarterback. I can't not stress this and repeat it enough. It is a massive need for the Miami Dolphins. I will say as well, a couple other needs. They also need corners. I think I take back the running back thing. Defensive back might actually be the second biggest need now that I'm looking at it, because I know they cut Kendall Fuller. Jalen Ramsey is good, but he's older. Javon Holland, their safety, I think he's going to leave in free agency. So you really need... Also, Jordan Poyer, is he a free agent? I think he might be. If not, he's still in his 30s, right? You need to draft a DB to help develop this group, because they're losing a lot of guys. So they need to add someone there. That honestly might need to be their first round pick if they can't get a good offensive line prospect. But second round, it has to be immediate. It has to be at least first or second round. I don't think you go day 1 or even if it's round 3, that's fine. I don't think you can go without drafting a quarter until day 3. I think you need to draft corner on day 1, day 2, and then that way you get the most premium talent, highest upside players you can, and a guy that has more potential to be able to plug and play and start right away. And then you're also going to need to sign someone in free agency too to just fill a spot so you don't have a bunch of depth issues at that position. Along with that, I also want to mention they also need edge rusher. They have Chop Robinson, but Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are constantly hurt. Emmanuel Ogba's old. I don't want to say it's a huge need, because when Chubb and Jalen Phillips are healthy, along with Chop, I mean, that's a pretty good trio of pass rushers. But you can't rely on them staying healthy. So adding another edge rusher on day 3 to provide depth would be really important here. And the thing is, these are the only 2 huge issues on this defense. So if you can at least patch them up, that would be huge. That would be really huge to helping improve the defense and maybe improve the little issues that they've had, or the big issues, with their pass rush and then not being able to commit turnovers because of it. With all that being said, to wrap this all up, the Miami Dolphins were going to be in the hunt next year regardless, in my opinion. They all have always been a very competitive team under Mike McDaniel. It's been a matter of can they put it together and have a complete season. And to me, it's a boom or bust type of year because Miami, I have serious doubts personally about Mike McDaniel now because no matter how good of a genius of an offensive mind you are, Miami, we can't do this anymore. We cannot, and I say cannot, have another year where you're up and down. You cannot do that where you have a hot start to the year and cold start to the end, or vice versa. That can't happen again. And I fear that if that does happen again and Miami doesn't make the playoffs, and if they make the playoffs, they get blown out in the play and blow out in the wild card round and look uncompetitive, I think fear Mike McDaniel will be fired. And that's another situation what I've talked about with, Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland or like a Brian Daboll in New York, where these guys, they have shown good things. I think they can be good head coaches. It's just they're not able to do enough. They're not able to take that next step like people think they can. And if Mike McDaniel can't do that, I believe he'll be the next head coach that's in that category to be let go. So next year, it's so important for Miami, for this team to improve what they need to improve on, but also really learn how to play together and play a complete season. Because if they don't, everything might come crumbling down quicker than they could actually build it back up like they did when Mike McDaniel was first hired. All that being said, that will do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys liked it, please leave a like and subscribe if you're brand new here around the channel, or if you've viewed this video or viewed my podcast a whole bunch and have not clicked it yet, go ahead and do it. It takes only a couple seconds and it'll help me out very much so. I'd greatly appreciate it if you guys would. It'll help me continue to grow my football passion and continue spreading it to more and more people on this platform. Also, make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I want to hear everything you want to hear, everything that you think oh my God. I want to hear everything that you guys have to say, Miami Dolphins fans, about free agency, the draft, where your team is going to finish. Are you confident in this team? Are you confident in Mike McDaniel? I want to hear all of it. The last thing, make sure you guys share the video, whether it's by word of mouth or social media, getting everybody locked in and locked on to the Shumake podcast, because I come out with great content for you guys every single week. We got free agency starting next week as you guys are seeing this video. So that's going to be awesome. We're going to talk about that all during the week, which will be fun. And we also got predictions versus reality continuing to come out. We're going to wrap up the AFC East here in just a few moments as I'm going to record these back to back. And then we'll get to the AFC West and then the AFC South. So that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed. And also for any of you that watched the Philadelphia Eagles video, getting it over 200 views, thank you very much. I appreciate every single one of you. And until then, I will see you guys next time.